Hey, Shannon.
Hey, Swanee.
What's the difference between pulling a rabbit out of a hat and a dog doing a shake a paw?
One's a magic trick and one is hard work.
That's right. And that's what we're talking about today on the McCann Dogs podcast. Welcome back.
Hey, Swanee.
Yes, Shannon?
Have you ever done any magic tricks?
I've tried to do magic tricks, but they don't really turn out for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Then how do your dogs listen so well?
It's not magic, it's training.
Oh, ba-dum-bum. We did that intro so well, but truly, this is what we want to talk about today on the McCann Dogs podcast. We want to talk about the idea that there is no magic in this system.
Right.
You know, a lot of the times people are looking for that magic solution, you know, the magic treat, the magic training method, the magic drill they're going to do to create listening skills in their dog. And I can honestly say the magic is in the work.
Right.
The magic is not in anything that you are going to find that's obscure out there in the world that suddenly just makes everything better. It's all about work. That's like saying, oh, I'm going to magically teach my child how to be a productive member of society.
Right.
You know, it's not that. It's a cumulative effort of work that goes into consistently giving information to a creature until they get to the point where they can make good decisions on their own.
Yes. Well, our world has changed so much in a few generations.
Yeah, it really has.
It was only a few generations ago where, you know, many of us had to, make our own clothes, repair our own clothes, grow our own food. You know,
I would have failed miserably
build our
in
own
all
house,
of these departments.
right?
Yeah.
But now society has gone more instant, and we expect things to happen very quickly and things to be perfect quickly. But animals haven't changed.
No, they have. That's an excellent thing to say. I really that's a really great way of putting it in perspective because they really haven't, you know, they haven't gotten social media in their world that has changed the way they think and breathe and be. Mm-hmm. They haven't been influenced by the changes in our culture in any way that is going to change who they are. Humans have changed quite a bit based on the changes in our culture, but animals remain animals.
Yes. A dog bred in the 1800s thinks the same as a dog bred today.
Yeah, absolutely. And
whereas
they have a lot.
Humans don't. We're drastically different than our relatives from the 1800s.
Definitely.
Yes.
Most of us would hit that era and we would be done. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't know what to do or how to think or, you know, how to feed ourselves and take care of all of our basic needs because our systems are so drastically different now.
Yes.
So, yeah, dogs have stayed the same. Mm-hmm. So this is really important to note because we are now in a very different world for dogs. Mm-hmm. And it's our responsibility to teach them how to exist safely in this world, which means different things than what we would have done back in the 1800s.
Exactly, right, yes.
I would have done completely different things in the 1800s. So. But truly, though.
I think I would have been a sheriff of a town.
I would have been the gunslinger. You're going down, sheriff.
Would we have been
taking over your town?
Would we have been dog trainers in the 1800s?
This is like the Old West. This is not the 1800s.
That's true. Yeah,
We are definitely not historians here.
No.
we're doing sheriffs and gunslingers in the 1800s.
We're making the whole 1800s was the Wild West.
I digress. Would we have been what? Sorry?
Dog trainers in the 1800s.
Yes, absolutely. That's you know what? Was there even such a thing?
I bet no.
Yeah.
I bet no.
Very different, very different reality.
Now, there would have been people who used their dogs for work. So they would have guided and molded their dogs to hunt for them, to pull carts, to move livestock.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been called a dog trainer. You probably just would have been an expectation that you know how to manage animals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we lived with animals then, right? We would have had to, if we're raising our own food, if we're growing our own crops, we would have needed to live with animals and use them in our day-to-day life. So that would have been a skill that would have been expected from us.
Right.
You know, just like being able to grow our own food, we would have been expected to be able to teach the animals that we used to do work for us, right? Teach the donkey to pull the cart, teach all these things that we would need done. So it would have been more like more natural animal husbandry.
It would have been, very natural,
at that point.
just a way of life.
Absolutely. Yes. And now it's different because our dogs don't need to do anything for us, right? There's a lot of us that choose to have our dogs work with us, for us, etc. There's still lots of working farms, and I'm sure there's lots of, you could probably go on for a long time, service dogs, bomb sniffer dogs.
Right.
You could
military
go on for
dogs,
a long time about dogs that actually have jobs, police and military and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, service dogs for sure. But
the bulk of dogs now
are pets.
Yeah, and don't have a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as humans, with the absence of information, we fill in holes. So if we are not well educated about dogs and how they think, we fill in those holes with thoughts about how we would do things, or we project, of course, that the dog doing that thing must be because of X, Y, Z, because it would be on our behalf. Right. You know, if I was doing that, it would be because I was being stubborn or spiteful or trying to make a point or whatever the case may be. Dogs aren't doing that. They're just living their lives.
Right.
So,
yeah. They're just being dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my goal for today is really to talk about all of the things that go into creating a well-behaved dog. And this is all very fresh, top of mind. Most dog trainers have dogs that they're raising at any given point in time. I have a 7-month-old pup at home right now. You might have heard of him. I talk about him a lot. His name is Levins. No, his name is Levon. I call him Levins. That's my biggest nickname for him. And funny enough, I've decided that when I release him at the hunt test line, which will be in his future, I've decided to release him with Loves. So, because it's traditional to, if you have multiple dogs and you're hunting with multiple dogs, you usually release the one that you're going to release to retrieve the bird on their name so that they can identify that. So it's traditional in field to release on their name. I don't like to release on their name simply because I like my dogs to always turn back to me when they hear their name. So I always use some sort of a nickname at that point. And it's said very differently in that really rushed, hurried tone like what I just used. So I've decided that I will be proud as punch at the hunt line with all the guns and all the tough stuff around me and, you know, the big male judges, etc., by releasing my little toddler dog saying, Loves. And I won't blame anybody for laughing at me. That's probably some of the point, actually. So I don't mind at all.
Now, all right. Is that moment going to come right away?
Oh, heavens, no.
No, that's going to take you a lot of work.
It is taking me a lot of work. I mean, so basically I've started fieldwork foundations with him from the time he came home. And this is just thinking about, you know, encouraging a longer hold with toys and encouraging steady retrieves and things like that, encouraging excitement in the retrieve as well as some manners in the retrieve and just all sorts of things, you know, all the things that we sort of don't even think about when we know we have a goal and we're sort of unconsciously competent in that goal, which is where I'm at this point with tollers. I've had them since 2001, so 24 years now.
Right.
I've had the breed, and very early on with my first toller, I was introduced to field work, and I was like, wow, I want to do that. Right. So for a long time, I've been playing around with field work and love the game. Right. Really, really love the game. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of effort to get to a certain well-oiled point in anything.
Yeah, it's truly a labor of love.
Absolutely. Whether it's field work, whether it's agility, whether it's competitive obedience, whether it's fly ball, whatever it is.
Or whether it's that dog that you see on Instagram doing all these tricks.
Yeah,
good point. That just didn't happen. That's a lot of work by that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the finished product and you think, wow, that looks great. And that looks easy, right?
Yes.
Like I can watch somebody doing beautiful ballet and think, that looks effortless because that person has put so much time, so much effort, so much energy into it that they can make it look effortless.
Yes.
But if I were to try to get there too, holy cow.
Right. Yes.
I don't even know what No, we won't even talk about it. I took dance as a child. I did just fine, but I have since lost any dance skills I might have had. So
we're going to have a dance off one day.
Yeah, we will. We will. I promise. That's coming. That's coming. Stay tuned to the McCann Dogs podcast for the Shannon Swanee dance off. We'll need other volunteers too. It can't just be the two of us.
Definitely. We'll have to get a bigger studio.
We will, absolutely. And we have to involve the dogs somehow. So we're going to have to think about this a little bit more.
One of my friends told me they went to a silent disco and everyone puts on earphones and listens to their own song and they dance. So everyone's dancing, but there's no sound. And everyone's dancing to different songs, and it's called a silent disco.
Okay, that's really funny.
That would be fun, yeah.
I bet that's really, really funny. I'm thinking like Elaine Bennis and all her disjointed moves.
Right,
I actually just watched that episode on rerun the other day, and I was thinking about us talking about it on the podcast. Such a good show. Such a good show. There's always a rule for everything in Seinfeld, right? They would have a rule for dog training stuff if they were still going on today, too.
Yes.
So, yeah, the images that we see definitely don't tell the tale. And I think that's what we're inundated with a lot these days.
Yes.
So
Isn't it funny? Because we always, as women, we often see young girls' images, and we know that they're harmful to our young girls because they're trying to strive to have that perfect skin or that perfect hair or the perfect body weight.
Absolutely.
And we know that's not realistic.
No.
And we need to apply that to the dogs that we see too.
Oh, this is good. I like the way you're...
So when we see these, that it's unrealistic a lot of times for us to expect to get our dogs there, especially overnight. It's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, and here's the thing with all that stuff. If you don't have a basis for comparison, like if you don't have any other reference point to look at, you're just looking at all these perfect dogs all over the place, and then you turn around and you look at your own dog and you're like, my dog's not like that. It makes you feel like a failure. It makes you feel like this thing that other people can do is not attainable for me.
Right.
So why should I even bother, right? And that could not be further from the truth. Oh my goodness gracious me. I'm shaking my head vehemently. If you're watching
vehemently.
If you're watching us, you're seeing this reaction. Everybody can have a well-behaved dog.
Yes.
The magic truly is in the work. And we can all do the work. I mean, I'm sure there's some exceptions, but for the most part, we can all do the work. And even if you're doing more limited work, you can still get there, right? Your only comparison is yourself.
Right.
And when you want to get there, right? You don't need to compare yourself to those dog trainers that you see on social media. Of course, they're going to get there faster. Of course, they're going to have a more polished product to show you.
And of course, they're only showing the most polished product.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, they're not showing you all the blooper reels.
That's exactly why. And actually, I just had one of these moments when I was taking Levon out for a pee before we came into the studio to record podcasts. I wanted to make sure that he was empty, so he had some rest time in him while we were recording. And I was very proud of all of his, he's doing great now. We've put in the time, we've put in the work, and now we're at the proofing phase and things. And, walking out of the meeting room and through the crate room and then outside to have a pee, all of these places, he walked beautifully at my side, nice loose lead, very casual, let's go outside. But he knows this is the place I need to walk. And there's all sorts of triggers along the way. There's dogs in the crate room that are often exciting in the crates. It's a laundry hamper, actually, full of toys at the front of the Life Skills 1 hall that we have to pass by. And he knows they're there and he loves them. And frequently I say, okay, go get a toy. And I let him go grab them. But there's rules within that context. And he's not allowed to go and grab the toys in the toy box unless he's given permission.
Right.
Because sometimes there's classes in there. Sometimes there's other people in there. So, it's not always appropriate for him to be shopping for toys in the toy box.
Yes.
But when it is appropriate, I love watching him do that, so I'm going to give him permission to go and do that. Anyways, all of that way, outside, through the toy box, etc., even back in through the crate room and then by the toy box again, he was a little rock star. He looked beautiful. He made great choices. And then when we got to the meeting room door, he just had one fleeting little moment where he said, oh, I think I want to go back and check out that toy box again. I just gave him a little bump on the leash for letting the leash tighten. And he went, oh, yeah, I forgot myself. And he came running back. And I jokingly said as I walked back into the meeting room to Swanee, well, we'll just make sure we cut that one from the Instagram reel.
Right,
and it's like, yeah, ha, ha, ha. But truly, if I was making a video for Instagram, which I'm not a big social media person, so all my social media tends to go out through McCann Dogs, but I'm not a big social media person myself. But if I was making that video, I probably would have my ego would be a little bit inclined to cut out that mistake and just show
the good stuff.
Look how brilliant Levon is, right? It's not reality. That's just a clip. Right?
Exactly.
It's just a glimpse into this wonderful dog's life. And because I'm showing off the best of my dog, I'm probably not going to include all the mistakes. But they're there.
Right.
No dog is perfect. No human is perfect. There are times when we often create videos for our students, and there are times where we leave the mistakes on there so we can talk about them.
Yes.
This is reality dog training. Like, yeah, he did go and sniff the floor there, and I had to get after him because he's not allowed to do that while he's in the middle of work. And, here's how I did it, etc. It's a great learning opportunity for people, and it's also realistic.
Yes. When I'm teaching classes, I'll show the students, okay, this is what our finished product looks like. And now let's break down the little steps. And then I also talk about what to do when things go wrong.
Yeah.
I don't just say, okay, everyone do this, and it's going to work. It's like, no, this is what you do if this goes wrong.
Yeah.
This is what you do if this goes wrong. So everyone's prepared and knows what to do.
Absolutely.
So every big picture you see needs to be broken down into tiny steps, and you need to perfect each tiny step. You can't go from zero to the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said before, we often expect our dogs to go from kindergarten and jump right to university, right? It's not reasonable to expect. We just need to slowly get them there, right? Just like our human children, we go from kindergarten to grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3, etc. We don't jump through huge grades. We don't go right from kindergarten to university with our kids,
right?
Because that wouldn't make sense,
right? Yes. Or we don't go from not knowing any ballet to dancing. Is it the Swan Lake? Swan Lake, yeah. Or the Nutcracker.
The Nutcracker.
Right. There's a lot of steps there that we need to learn. And our dogs are like that too. They need to learn those steps.
Absolutely.
And they need to practice those steps. And our dogs, to us, sometimes things look simple, but they're not simple to an animal.
Yeah. The other thing too is I think that there's a lot of marketing out there for dog training, and people are always trying to one up each other, right? You get this many skills in this few weeks. You get this much for this little, right? So if I'm looking at dog training programs and I see something that says, you're going to perfect this thing within 7 days, I'm going to be like, wow, that's not much time at all.
Right.
And then I scroll on and the next thing markets to me and it says, we can help you perfect this thing in 3 days. And it's like, oh, that's the bigger, better deal for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that one. And then when I actually get in the program, it's like, oh, this is just like everything else. But the marketing is such a huge part of our life, right? It's such a big thing for us right now. And
you know what I just thought of?
What's that?
It doesn't really, it's not informative in any way, but one place says,
good introduction.
We'll take your dog to the moon. The next place, we'll take your dog to the stars.
Oh,
the next place, we'll take your dog to the sun.
Oh,
right.
Which one do you want to go to?
I think I'd rather go to the stars than the sun. The sun seems kind of hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the moon seems kind of boring because I can just see the moon from my window.
I tend to get a sunburn. But I would like to meet the man in that moon. I've heard about him all my life and I've never met him.
He's made out of cheese.
Yeah, He's
made out of cheese.
He's made out of green cheese.
Yes.
Yep. I've heard this. I would like to confirm this. I would like to walk up and take a bite out of his side and go, well, that's some green cheese.
What you need to do is find the cow that jumps over the moon. Ride him. Hop on his back. Ride him. Hop off.
Just in time.
Pick him up the next night.
Yeah. You know what? Does he go every night?
Every night he goes.
Every night. That's perfect. Let's take a trip. Let's plan our road trip.
We just got to find the right cow.
Yeah. We're going to have to build a saddle because I don't know if I can jump over the moon on a cow and not get thrown off.
We're going to have to take some steps to teach that cow to wear a saddle.
You know what? And maybe we can take some steps to teach me how to ride a cow.
Okay, we're really getting off topic.
Quotes from the McCann Dogs podcast. Maybe we can take some steps to teach Shannon to ride a cow. You heard it here first. Alrighty, so on that note, let's talk about how we do attain this thing, because it's not through watching videos on YouTube and then doing a half-hearted effort to train your dog. It's not through hope. You know, a lot of the times people go and get a dog and they bring the dog home and they go, you know what? Hopefully this dog listens, you know?
Yes.
And then they shoot themselves in the foot so badly because initially the dog probably will listen.
Yes.
You know, initially, whether it's if you have a dog that you bring home that's an older dog, there's something called a honeymoon period where they're sort of on their best behavior, waiting to see where they fit. And once they feel safe in the situation, then you'll see some true colors starting to show from the dog. So it's always, you're always well advised if you're bringing home an older dog to sort of wait to assess whether or not it's the right dog for you for that initial honeymoon period to pass by. And if you're looking for information on rescue dogs, we did a great episode on rescue. We had instructor Carol on and lots of good advice for taking that route, what to look for, etc., because it's a vast array of everything out there if you're looking at the rescue industry.
Or people carry around food and it fools them. They fool themselves. The dog's trained. It's like, well, I always have this treat here, but then when you don't have the treat and the squirrel runs by, the dog doesn't do it.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of the times that is what you see on instructional videos.
Yes.
And we actually just put out a video this weekend that sort of spoke to this exact thing a little bit. We show a lot of the beginner stages of dog training because you need to start at the beginning.
Right, yeah.
In order to get the full picture, you really need to have a full program, and that's not realistic for us to have provided free on our YouTube channel. So we have snippets, right? And that's what you're going to get with most people's social media, YouTube channels, etc. You have snippets. You have little bits of information that we're hoping will help people get a quick win with their dogs, get them started on the right track, and really fan the flames and desire to get more from the dog.
And they're very generic. They're not tailored. They're like, this is a broad spectrum of dogs will respond to this.
Exactly.
But there's always exceptions. Dog training is very fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. And truly, to be able to get your dog from point A, where they're a young puppy, they've just come into your life, and I was going to say, as well as the honeymoon period with older dogs, if you have a puppy, they often are glued to you for the first few weeks of their life, or the first few weeks that they're home with you. That safety instinct, once they hit 12 weeks, they start to mature a little bit and you'll start to see them become more independent.
Right.
But a lot of the times people miss that really, really influential window of 8 to 12 weeks where they could be teaching their dog all sorts of skills really, really easily.
Right. Yes.
Really easily. But they miss that window because they think the picture they see there where the dog is following them around, coming when they're called already, et cetera, the laundry list of things that we hear from people with 11-week-old puppies and what they can do is usually very impressive.
Yes.
And we have to be the ones to break it to them and say, you know what? It's going to change.
Right.
Talk to me in 2 weeks.
Yes.
This is just, it's the way evolution has created the puppy, right? They want to stick close to home. They want to stay to safety.
Yeah, it's like your 3-year-old little boy is very different than when he turns 17.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody comes along to say hello and they're hiding behind your legs a little bit because they're shy. Like it's a very similar thing, right? Like they're clinging to what they know is safe in this moment where they feel a little bit vulnerable for whatever reason. It's the same with our puppies.
Yeah, like even at 9, 10, they're a very different child than they were at 3.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's development.
But people don't seem to get that happens in puppies too.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's just because there's a lot of times where they're letting puppies age along with them and just sort of weathering and not recognizing that there are reasons behind these changes, because they automatically start saying things like stubborn, he knows how to do this, he was already doing this, etc. So that puppy that is coming when they're called at 11 weeks of age and following you around, when it suddenly stops doing that at 12 and 13 weeks, because of development and because it goes, ooh, there's more to this world.
Right.
And they haven't been taught to keep their ears open to listening.
Yes.
It's not that they're stubborn, and it's not that they're suddenly saying, oh, I'm going to ignore that because now, I want to be a jerky puppy instead of being your little shadow.
Right.
It's not that at all. It's not a conscious thing on their part. They don't understand truly that hearing their name or hearing a recall command is something that they need to listen to.
Right. Yes.
They've just been cooperative all along.
Yes.
And it's a very powerful thing to create a creature that you can say something to, like come, and they will say, okay, I really want to do this thing that I'm doing over here, but you said this, so I need to listen to that instead. That's a very powerful thing, and it's something that needs to be created. It's not just something that you're going to lock into.
Right, yes.
I've had a lot of dogs now, and I have not had any dogs that just naturally want to do everything that I want to do all the time.
Right.
There's convincing to say to them, I know you want to sniff that thing. I know you want to chase that deer. I know you want to chase that squirrel, but you can't.
Right, yes.
And to get that reaction, that's very powerful. And it doesn't happen through hope, right? It's not me crossing my fingers and, okay, I hope this puppy continues to listen forever. It's me teaching that puppy.
Right, yes. And that's one thing I like to hear from students, and one thing I think that sets people who are going to be good dog trainers apart from people who aren't putting the work in is when the puppy starts to make mistakes or the puppy's doing something wrong or not learning, instead of blaming it on the puppy, you look at yourself and you say, where am I going wrong? How am I not guiding this dog right?
Yeah.
What can I do differently? It's never the animal's fault when
Absolutely.
they're learning.
Yeah.
It's something we're not communicating.
Yeah.
So I love that when I hear my students say, like, what can I do better? Like,
Absolutely.
Watch me. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Because that's where the answer lies.
Absolutely. And so often, like our students who are coming in with the idea that they need to do training with the dog. So they're already open-minded to the idea that there's work going to be involved. But even still, sometimes it's a big surprise, I think, to people how much work they're going to have to do.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that they're, all day, every day in the grind. It just means that you're going to have to put off the reinforcement of freedom that you're going to get from giving your dog freedom. You're going to have to put that off for a bit in favor of the teaching phase of things. And then once the teaching phase has been thoroughly done,
right,
you're going to be able to enjoy the freedom. And our instant gratification society wants that now. But then if we give that now and our dogs learn that they don't have to listen and they don't have to come when they're called because we're not teaching them, right? If we just say, I'm going to hope that this dog keeps doing what they're doing when they were 8 to 12 weeks, we're eventually going to get to a point where that is going to derail.
Right. Yes.
And if we've taken that time in the early stages to train, we can capitalize on that cooperation and we can teach all sorts of great skills to our dogs. But if we've let that time sort of lapse and we've let our dogs figure out what they can do to reward themselves, et cetera, and that they can ignore us, we're actually creating more work and we're limiting the dog's freedom in the future.
Right.
That's the thing I think people don't necessarily grasp fully when they're not seeing the full picture.
Right.
And Swanee, what do you do when you want to do something and you don't see the full picture? If you wanted to be an artist, say, and you were like, I don't really know how to even hold a paintbrush, what would you do?
The first thing I'm going to do is look for help from somebody who does know.
Yeah. And probably a program, too, so that you have somebody in your corner who is saying, this is how it's going to be in the future. So we're going to do all of these steps now so that when we get to the future and we meet that position in the future, we're prepared for it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
As opposed to if you're on your own and you're sort of figuring it out on your own, you're making the mistakes before you even realize you're going to make those mistakes.
And there's no one there to tell you.
Exactly.
So now you're going beyond the mistakes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And if I'm like armchair warrior, or keyboard warrior, I should say is more an appropriate term. And I go, okay, I'm going to get all my answers online. And I go searching for solutions based on what I think's going on. I might be taking the entirely wrong path.
Right, yes. Because anyone can put anything online.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, and they do. And
Yes.
there's so, oh my goodness, there's so much conflicting advice out there. So, and truly, there's a lot of people who want to piecemeal together a bunch of advice from different sources when they still don't have a clear picture.
Right.
They don't have a clear view of the big picture. So that's problematic in and of itself.
Right, yeah.
Especially if you're new to dogs,
Yes,
right?
and you want to look too. So if I have a young family with young children and I've brought my puppy home, I want to make sure I'm hooking up with dog trainers who are family dog trainers.
Right.
I could inadvertently be looking at a dog trainer who specializes in teaching fly ball or specializes in raising a dog for herding cattle.
Right.
And I don't realize it. And now
if I want to herd cattle with my dog, that's a great person to go to.
Yes.
But if I just want a family pet that I can live with,
yes.
gonna be
So
lacking
you want to
probably.
make sure that if you're following someone on YouTube, make sure that they train for what you want.
yeah, absolutely.
Because you're bringing out different qualities in the dog with different styles of training.
Yeah, absolutely. And with different goals in mind, you're working different systems with the dog.
Right.
One trainer might find it very beneficial to teach that dog how to have a controlled bite, right? If I'm doing protection work or bite sports or things like that, I'm going to be looking at a dog biting in a very different headspace because I'm trying to encourage this behavior.
Right.
Whereas if I want a family pet, I need to discourage that biting behavior or channel it in different ways.
Right.
So I need to learn from somebody who has that goal in mind as well. Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up.
And we often don't, we see the flash on
Yeah.
YouTube and we don't realize that, maybe these people aren't the best for my family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, do your homework. Definitely do your homework. Yeah, your best bet is always referrals, right? Talk to friends and neighbors and people who have been there and done it and the experiences they've had, et cetera.
Yes.
But definitely look into a program.
Right. If I see somebody with a dog walking down the street and the dog's behaving great, or maybe we're at a coffee shop and there's a dog laying there, I'm always curious where they trained.
Yeah, of course. And, yeah, me too.
I often know if it's a McCann dog person because I'll recognize they often have our equipment on. And but if I don't recognize what they're using and I don't recognize methods, I might say, where'd you train your dog? Like, this is awesome. Yeah. I'm always curious. So that's another thing too. If you're out and about and you see someone at the park and their dog is awesome, ask them where they train the dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's a great resource for sure. And people love talking about their dogs.
They do. Yes. Definitely. And you'll make their day too if you
if you compliment their dog and their dog's behavior. Yeah. Dogs or kids, if you compliment those things, people will love you.
Yes. I think another change too is the increasing urban environments we're putting dogs into and expecting them to behave in.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot more condos.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I even remember like 30 years ago, there was dogs. I lived in a small town and there was dogs running loose. And I remember my mom saying when she was a little girl, people just open their doors and you let the dog out for the day. So we can't do that anymore.
No.
So before, dogs would get out, or they live on farms and they're out doing their own dog things all day. And when we bring them in, a lot of them were just content to lay by the fire because they had a big doggy outing day.
Absolutely.
Whereas we can't do that anymore.
No.
So we're thrusting our dogs into an urban environment more and more. Yeah. So we need to train.
Yeah,
we need to train because they're not just out running loose like they used to be 30, 40 years ago.
Well, and here's the thing. Even if you have a backyard, the dog who doesn't get training eventually just gets relegated to the house in the backyard. Like once it becomes too arduous a task to bring your golden retriever, who's now 70 pounds, out into society, you're going to either step up and train or you're going to stop going out with the dog, and the dog is going to have this very small world in the house and in the backyard.
Right.
And that to me,
that's not fair.
And I mean, if I was that dog, I'd be looking for every opportunity I could to escape out the front door. Right. I mean, honestly, that's so pent up. And of course, if this is your dog, then you know that it doesn't have the training it needs to be able to call it back. So it's
you
just
know how
such
I like
a conundrum.
This is just a little off the topic Swanee rant. People who buy rabbits or guinea pigs and just leave them in a cage all the time. Like, that's awful. Those animals need to get out of their cage and hop around and investigate. Like, like, they're not cage animals. Of course, they have to be caged sometimes.
Yeah.
But
it's just like our dogs. We use a crate to keep them safe, but they don't live in the crate.
Right, yes. And I feel very bad for dogs who, because of the owner, either can't be bothered or just, I shouldn't say this, too lazy to train their dog. Yeah. That poor dog is not having a good life.
Yeah. Yes. I actually wrote an article a long, long time ago now for McCann's. It's on the McCann blog still, probably 10 years ago or so, about sometimes the apartment dog has the way better life.
Right.
Because you don't have a choice but to force yourself to get that dog out, right? You can't really exist in an apartment with a dog without spending time outside. So that dog gets training. That dog gets outings because the necessity is there, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. Right. So if you do have a yard, often the dog who is not well trained, the dog who doesn't get the time put into it as a rule. I mean, some people they're going to train the dog regardless, right? And then some people are going to cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Right.
And if you're hoping for the best and you're that person, you're probably not as invested in the idea of eventually fixing the problem as you would be if you went into it with a mindset saying, okay, I'm going to make this dog the best dog I possibly can be. So already you're sort of behind the eight ball on that.
Yes. Like, I often ask people who are having a lot of troubles, what was the reason why you got a dog? Like, what was that driving force? Why? And we try to get to the root of why they wanted the dog, and I try to inspire them to have that flame of excitement again, to get themselves training.
I love that.
What are they called? A picture board or a dream board?
Oh yeah. I think dream board.
A dream board or something like that. Like, let's fire that up again in your mind. Like, when you got this little puppy, what were your dreams? What were your pictures that you wanted to get to? Let's try to get back there and get started on that again.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times I think people get defeated. They don't
Yeah,
realize
Well,
there's a
and what
lot of work
causes
involved.
that? What causes that? Just the delusion that work is going to, or is it the dog suddenly is not as novel? Like, what causes that?
I think too, they don't realize that, you know, you work 8 hours a day and you work hard and you come home, and if you've chosen the wrong breed,
Oh, yeah.
that dog's okay, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready for my 8 hours now.
absolutely.
Yes. And people
Absolutely.
just get, let's just put him out in the yard.
Yeah. And truly, you will be very well advised to do your research on breeds, because there are so many breeds that are just far more than you expect.
Right.
You know, and because we see so many dogs doing so many amazing things on social media. Like, I remember when I first started in dogs and seeing all the border collies do wonderful things. And this was before social media, of course, seeing all of the border collies around me doing amazing things. I wanted a border collie. I wanted that. But then when I actually started thinking about, okay, do I really want a border collie? What are the traits that I like? What is the appearance that I like in a dog? What is the coat that I like in a dog? What is the energy level that I like in a dog? And I had a Rottweiler at the time when I was considering getting something a little bit sportier. And I ended up landing on the Toller, and it's been the perfect fit for me. Fell in love madly with the breed, of course, based on my first Toller, and then got into all sorts of activities and joined clubs and, you know, served on boards. And, you know, it just basically became a lifestyle for me because of what I do and who I am and how much I love the breed and wanted to defend the breed, et cetera, once I, you know, got really invested in them. Can't remember what my original point was.
We need to get the correct choice of breed for us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many breeds now that are very beautiful, and we see on social media, we see them doing these amazing things, and we think, I want one of those. I want one of those beautiful Merle Aussies, you know? They're gorgeous. I want one that has 2 different colored eyes. You know, they look so interesting. I want this, that, and the other. But if you only pick the dog based on looks, there is a very good chance you are going to be miserable for the next 12 or 15 years if you're able to stick it out and the dog doesn't end up back at the breeders or at a shelter or rehomed some other way. And we would all like to avoid that, of course, if possible. And the dog should be in an advantaged position to avoid that as well.
Yes.
So,
like there's breeds that I like. You know, I just gasp when I see a fully groomed show ring Afghan hound. A fully ringed show ring Belgian Groenendael.
Yeah.
A fully groomed show ring standard poodle. Like, holy man.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to walk around with that all day.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of work.
It is.
Like,
it is.
I
Absolutely.
don't have time to brush my own hair. So how will I find time to brush a dog's hair?
Your hair looks beautiful today. Did you brush it?
I did brush it today.
But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right? And that's hours and hours and hours of coat work, just brushing. Never mind the training you have to do too with those dogs.
Absolutely.
And if that was my desire, then I would put 100% into it.
Yes.
But I've always chosen dogs that I love to train, but have easier coats because I don't mind brushing my dog, but I don't love brushing a dog. So I know not to get one of these big coats.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you went with a Saluki.
Yes.
When you did go with
yes. Yeah. So a Saluki is very similar to an Afghan hound, but it has very short fur. So I got the same outline, but the manageable fur.
Absolutely.
I had Belgian Malinois, which
Instead of the
are
Groenendaels.
short hairs. The Belgian Groenendael is very, very, actually in Canada, they're recognized as the same breed, the Belgian Shepherd, with a different coat variety. So the Belgian Groenendael is a long-haired black Belgian Shepherd, whereas the Malinois is a short-haired brownish. So that's why I love the Groenendaels I saw growing up, and I thought I loved the temperament, but I can't do that brushing.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a Malinois, and that's how I got my Malinois. I looked at the short coat variety, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and on surface level, you might have thought, ooh, I need to get one of those.
Right.
But after you did more research, you found something that would fit you a little bit better. And that truly, like, this is a creature that we want to live with us in harmony for 12 to 15 years if we're lucky. You know, maybe more if we're even luckier. So take some time, invest some time in the decision-making process of what kind of dog you want, because it truly does make a world of difference.
Yes.
It truly, truly does. So I want to get back on track a little bit with how to make this work. And of course, that is step number one, right? Getting the right dog for you that's going to fit your lifestyle, that's going to fit in terms of your energy and your desire to put in the work as well.
Yes, and at the right timing too. Like when you're 6 months pregnant, it's not the time to get a puppy.
Yeah. And sometimes people think that, oh, I can get them now, I can get them trained, and then by the time the baby comes, we'll be ready. But that puppy is still in development by the time the baby comes. Like you're not done with your training by a long shot. Levon's 7 months old. He's doing great. Like he's got skills out the wazoo. I'm thrilled with him. We're advancing in all of the things that I like to do with my dogs, competitive obedience and field work. And, you know, we're gelling on such a great level in terms of the teamwork. But it is long from done. I mean, even though I train my dogs forever, I mean, it's just the way it's what I do. It's my hobby,
it's
right?
Your hobby,
just like I wouldn't ever say, if I was knitting, I would never say, okay, I'm done with that Afghan, so I'm never going to knit again.
Exactly,
I love training dogs, so this is what I do for my hobby.
And that's what, like, you figure some people golf, some people play hockey, some people knit. They do crafts.
Yeah.
Dog training is another hobby.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you can go forever.
Yes.
It's not entirely necessary to go forever. And I say it's not entirely necessary because, of course, we're all fallible creatures, dogs too. They need tune-ups every once in a while, right? We talk about spring training tune-ups, for example.
Yes.
When the world changes, that's when I tend to go back to a little bit of basics. Like with Ned, for example, I'll do some reminder sessions on recall once the snow starts flying and the world looks different and smells different again. I'll just... That's just sort of my my rhythm is as the seasons change, I go, okay, I'm going to do some come pop reminders and basically just make sure that my dog understands every time they hear that word come, they still need to turn on a dime. There's not any sort of lax that has crept into my recall and my dog still has a good sharp recall because of those reminders, right?
And it's like humans need tune-ups as well.
Yeah.
Yes, like I learned how to skate when I was a young pup and I skated throughout my puppyhood.
You skated through your life.
Right. But now that I'm an older dog, I decided to take up skating again. And it just didn't come back like that. I needed a lot of tune-ups and I needed some help and
there you go.
Yeah, so I'm back out there teetery skating along.
Yeah, but, making progress,
right,
I bet.
Yeah, so you can't expect to teach your dog how to recall when it's 16 weeks old and then do nothing. Yeah. And then at 8 years old, it runs out on the road and you call it and it should remember and do it perfectly. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing with that early window period as well, is your dog is changing through development. So the things that were previously not meaningful to them are now very meaningful, like the big sniffs. Levon suddenly now is coming up on like cat pee places on the property, and he's coming up with this drooly, chattery face.
You need to put up a sign, no peeing on the property.
No peeing on the property. I know, I have signs everywhere, and those pesky cats.
Do you have a cat outhouse? Maybe you need a cat outhouse.
Actually, so there's an old chicken building on the property that needs a match, but it's entwined in a whole bunch of trees and shrubs, and it's a bit of a mess, but it's sort of in a corner where I don't really worry about things. So we'll see what happens to it. I'm going to take it down at some point, but it just hasn't happened yet. Anyways, I was walking by it the other day and there was an opossum who was going back into that section, and I was like, oh, maybe I need to get to that sooner rather than later, because I don't really want an opossum.
A tribe of opossums. A whole tribe. But they'll eat your ticks, so that's good.
They do eat the ticks, which is great, but I think the ticks have much greater numbers.
Oh.
No, but they can be very aggressive.
Oh.
So, and they also will kill just to kill. So I'm not worried about the pup now.
Shannon, I'm worried about you.
Yeah, I know, I'm worried about me too. No. When the pup was a baby puppy, I was kind of like, I saw the first opossum on the property and I thought, ooh, I'm not sure that I love that. But then he grew and I felt less vulnerable with him. So, and obviously I'm always with him. I never let my dogs roam on the property, even though I have 12 acres. They're never out there with him.
But you know what? 100 years ago you would have.
100 years ago would have been very different. Yeah. Yep. And I mean, lots of people will have invisible fence things set up and stuff like that, but that's just not me. I have a fully fenced area that I use for them to toilet when I want to throw them out there and not have to pay attention to them. And then the rest of the time, if they're out on the property, I'm out there with them, because I just strongly believe in always supervising my dogs. And, you know, I don't want them causing trouble. I don't want them chasing the cats. I don't want them, you know, all the things that I don't want them doing and potentially
or they could eat something and you don't know, and then a day goes by and Yeah, absolutely.
I can't remember what I was talking about. I keep getting
the
off track
opossum
today.
that was in your chicken coop.
The opossum, but there was something before that. But
About
anyways,
the chicken coop.
Anyways, the chicken. Yeah, but wait,
The opossums.
What respect? I think I just sort of went off on a tangent about the opossum. I'll listen to the replay and I'll be like, oh yeah. But anyways, can't do that now. So we'll just go on. So I think I was talking about that things were changing. Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about. He's developing, right? So the recall that I have now is based on his needs now and his wants now, right? Like, as things continue to change and he continues to develop into a fully mature male dog, there's going to be more hormonal flux that I need to work through, right? So I will
cat pee. Cat pee.
Yeah, cat pee is what brought us there. I will always take every opportunity to face these training challenges head on because I've been in dogs long enough now to know that the challenges aren't going away if I avoid them. You know, they're only going away if I go, okay, here's a challenge, I'm going to tackle it.
And I love the challenges.
Yeah, me too.
I do. It's like,
me too. Well, and that's where the triumph comes, right?
Yes.
Because it's not impossible to work through in any stretch of the imagination. And I'll put this in perspective. So Levon is getting to an age now where he is starting to reach sexual maturity. So I need to make sure that he understands that even if he smells females in season, etc., he still needs to respond to his name. He still needs to come when he's called. I keep my dogs intact for as long as I can until there becomes a reason not to. So I mean, Ned just got neutered at 7 because of a prostate issue. Reggie was neutered at 10 because he had perianal hernias that caused an issue, and that the recommended course of action was to remove the testosterone to stop fueling them. So if there's a health problem that comes up, I will neuter my dogs, of course, but otherwise I like to keep them intact. And I know he's going to start hitting sexual maturity. And I know that that's going to be a strong draw. We go to dog shows. There's females in season there often. There's often females in season around McCann's because we live and work with our dogs daily. So, they come into season. We don't put them on a shelf. Students can bring
their dogs when they're in season.
Students can bring their dogs in season as long as they have pants on. Yeah, absolutely. It's part of life. So I will be out there on Poop Hill, which Poop Hill is our area that we air our dogs. It's double entendre because it's also our septic hump. But we call it Poop Hill. So I'll be out there practicing recalls on Poop Hill, letting him go and get invested in one of the girl pee sniffs and then working come then pop to make sure that he says, yep, I get it. Even when I'm smelling girly pee, I still have to come when I'm called, and I mean, that's something to tackle, but it's not insurmountable. What would be insurmountable would be me going, okay, I'm just going to let him continue to wander around free here. And when he gets to the girly sniffs, trying to call him off of that and creating a situation where potentially he goes, I don't have to listen here. I'm going to get in one more second to sniff. And then when that sort of resonates with him the next time, oh, there wasn't that same consequence. There wasn't that same draw to have to turn and respond to my name. So I'm basically creating a situation now where I teach my dog not to listen to me as those stronger distractions come up. What I want to do is be proactive and go, okay, I know based on my knowledge or based on whatever program I'm in or based on what my instructor has told me is going to happen, I know I'm going to start having challenges soon with Levon when it comes to female urine smells. So I need to get in front of that. I need to do some cum pops and work through that. And then life is going to be great. And he's going to know that even though he's smelling girl pee, he still has to come when he's called. And like taking that challenge as far as I possibly can and getting great listening skills in that scenario is really important to me. And I will do things like Ned, for example. I used to set out hides when I was doing scent work with him quite heavily. I would set out hides on Poop Hill. So now, not only do you have to ignore the girly pee smell when I am calling you, you also, when I tell you to search, it's your job to go out there and search and find the thing I'm having you look for without getting distracted by the girly smells. Right? So it's definitely something that you can work through into a high degree. You just have to put in the time. And give the dog the right messages.
Well, one thing I know, one of my neighbors was always very impressed is that my dogs would not leave the porch unless I had verbally given them permission. And I remember he was always impressed that I could have the dogs on the porch and I could just walk down the stairs and they would stop and not follow me. And he used to love that. And it was a lot of work. So it wasn't just porch training. It was a lot of behind the scenes work. And my dogs knew that I could run off the porch and they would stick to the porch.
Yeah.
They wouldn't follow me.
Yeah.
And it's a great safety to have. Even now, Honda knows that when he's on a porch, he's 15 and he's deaf, you don't leave the porch.
Yeah.
You stay on that porch no matter what.
That's perfect.
So if he ever gets out on his own, or even I remember he would come down the driveway from the backyard sometimes and immediately default to the porch. So he'd be like, not sure what to do. I'll go on the porch. I know what to do on the porch.
Yeah.
Yes.
And getting there, truly, it's not some magical solution.
No, that wasn't magic, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, it's just work, and it's consistent work.
Yes.
And I want to talk about consistency for a moment, because truly you have nothing if you do not have consistent information. Right. So of all of those times, so say there's 100 instances of you leaving your dogs up on the porch and insisting that that's where they stay until they're released. Do you think that your dogs would have the same reliability in that skill if even just once or twice you let them get off the porch on their own and went, they're so cute, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Or we're not in training mode, I'm not going to worry about it
I'm talking to the neighbor, so I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
No, it's pulling a slot machine.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe this is the time I win.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's not to say your dog can't make mistakes.
No.
They will make mistakes.
Oh, they made lots of mistakes, yes.
Reaction to those mistakes is what will make the difference. And a lot of the times we're in human mode where we're thinking, I'll fix it later. I'm tired. I don't want to get off the porch right now. I'm rushing to get to where I need to be. My dog just broke off the porch, but I'm just going to load him in the car anyways because I got to go. I don't have the time to deal with this, right? We're humans and we have all these conditional situations in our head that are okay for us because on an intellectual level, we can understand those things.
I like to think of it as that's your job. So it's like, you know what, Honda, your job right now is to remain on the porch no matter what. And I'm truly delighted with him when he does.
Yeah.
Like, look at you. You are doing your job. You're doing your job.
Yeah,
That's great. So
absolutely.
I don't like to put a negative thing on it like that. I'm training and you must stay on the porch. It's like, guess what, Honda? You have a new job today. Your new job is to remain on the porch.
Yeah,
and
nice.
It puts more of a fun spin on it.
Yeah.
And you're rewarding the dog for doing their job.
Yeah, so that was my next question, actually. Do you reward this?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
And how do you reward it? With a 15-year-old dog, like I'm sure lots of people think you shouldn't need to reward a 15-year-old dog.
Well, he doesn't hear. So if he could hear, I would call up, good boy, what a good boy. But he recognizes when I clap my hands and smile. He knows that means I'm happy. I'll go up and maybe I happen to have a treat in my pocket. Okay. So I'll give him a treat. I'll give him, some patting and all that.
Yep.
So I'm rewarding him for doing that job up there in many different ways. And I keep it up. It becomes far more random as he gets older.
Absolutely.
But I think he has his own sense of pride. He knows that he's doing well. Yes.
And there's also a really, really big reward in there in releasing the dogs, right?
Yes.
In the dog saying, okay, if I break this position, you're going to put me back, right? And truly, I mean, there would be nothing rough in this situation, but I would without question, I'd march over to my dog, I'd take them by the collar and I'd march them back up on the porch and I would remind them to wait on the porch and then I'd walk away again. It wouldn't be a rough situation, but I am taking control and I am telling you, this is not an acceptable reaction to this situation. And you need to remain on the porch.
You're reacting early too, so I'm not waiting till the dog is down on the grass sniffing the tree.
You got it. Good point. Timing is important.
Yeah, the moment I see that first paw stepping onto that first step is, and then I'm up there. I'm up there. Yeah.
And the reason that timing is so important is exactly what I'm about to say right now. And that is that there is reward in the release for the dog. So you saying, okay, now you get to be free, that is hugely reinforcing for that dog. Yes. And if it gets done on their terms or at the wrong time, they're actually getting the reward for doing the wrong thing. And then to make matters even worse, as you said, timing being so important, if they go down and start sniffing that tree, now there's compounded rewards for doing the wrong thing, right? There's the release of themselves stepping off the porch. Oh, I'm in control of myself. I can do whatever I want. Then there is the walk down the stairs, which is more freedom. Then there's the sniff, which sniffing we know is very rewarding and very reinforcing for dogs. So now you've got all these compounded rewards for the dog doing the wrong thing. If you're a distance away from your dog, how do you combat that timing issue? They break on the porch. You see them starting to step down. What do you do?
I would use a verbal reprimand. So the moment I see that little paw stepping off, I'm going to use a oops or an or a baba, something.
Baba?
Yeah, that's what. I don't know how that happened, but I went from a light to a baba.
Baba.
I don't know how, but my dogs all know baba. It means stop what you're doing.
Swanee just has to put her own spin on everything.
I know, yes, yeah. But yeah, so I'd see, now with Honda not hearing now, basically I'm using my body language. So as soon as I see him, I'll put my hands up. I'm putting my hands up like 2 stop signs right now. And I would move quickly towards him since he can't hear. But a hearing dog, the moment I see that little paw lifting is the moment I use a baba. And I'm a little bit embarrassed with that reprimand, but it comes out easy.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, whatever works. And that baba just allows you to clarify for the dog where they went wrong. Because if you're 15 feet away and they get off the porch and you're relying on just getting to them, there's too much time that's passed.
Yes.
You know, dogs need to hear things within 1 second of the action to really understand that there's a connection between those pieces. So we don't want to suggest that it's wrong for them to sniff the base of the tree. What was wrong, the infraction here, was getting off the porch to begin with.
Yes.
So I don't want the trouble to happen when I take a hold of his collar at the tree to march him back up the porch. Up to the porch. I want him to know that the mistake was when he stepped off. So that baba, as soon as he starts to step off the porch, gives him information. Just like if I was in the same situation and I thought, you know what, my young dog here is doing great holding that stand weight on the porch, whatever it was I had him in. I'm going to make sure I go and reward him. I don't want to walk up to him and then mark him and reward him, which marking would be saying something like yes or using a clicker to mark the event that earned the reward. Instead, I want to do that from the car. So if I'm setting this up, for example, and this is to load my dogs into the car so I can go to work, then I am saying yes from the car and then walking back to them and giving them some sort of reinforcement if it's a tangible reinforcement like food or, a play opportunity. Or I might even say yes from the car and then, okay, the release is the reward for the dog.
Right, yes. And something that's sort of similar with people, I'm sure my aunt doesn't listen to the podcast. I don't even know if she knows that there is a podcast.
Is this Great Aunt Ida?
Yes, Great Aunt Ida. Great Aunt Ida's son, when he was maybe, 3 or 4, went through a very bad period of throwing trucks and cars.
Oh, was he like He-Man?
No.
Wow. 3 or 4 years old.
Toy ones.
My gosh. I got to meet this child.
Toy ones.
My head went to the wrong place.
And I guess he really walloped a few people in the head at family gatherings. And
if I laughed at him in that situation, like I'm trying hard not to do now, that would be rewarding for him.
Right, yes. And it's funny because I remember, because I was already well into my dog training career, and I remember, I knew this little boy would pick up Tonka trucks and throw them at people.
I don't mean to laugh. I don't know why.
And I remember watching him pick up a truck, and I remember watching his arm cock back. And I remember verbally reprimanding the moment I saw the truck being lifted in the air because I'm predicting. And hey, what are you doing? Like, I remember going in and I remember like the whole room of relatives falling silent. And I said, he was about to throw the truck. Like, you're having trouble with this. There's our big cue. And I remember thinking like, well, I felt kind of goofy, but I thought, no, we need to stop him the moment he picks up the truck. And they had some trouble with that. And finally, he's an adult now and he doesn't throw trucks at people.
And it's because of you.
I remember thinking at the time, they're missing the timing. Yeah. And I think we do that with a lot of dog training too, is we don't see it unfolding. We need to react early when it's unfolding.
Absolutely.
We don't want to wait till it's happening.
Absolutely. And that is one of the pieces of magic as well. But it's not actually magic, it's management.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Being aware of what the dependent creature, human, dog, etc., is going to need and being ready for that and preventing the wrong things from happening while you are in that sort of limbo, teaching all the right things is so important. It's just as important as the training itself.
Right.
Because dogs don't shut off training like we do. We go to school, we do our learning, we come home and we go, okay, I'm going to put the math work aside for now. I'm not going to think about it anymore. Their learning is all about real life situations.
Right.
So truly, they're always learning, always learning.
Yes.
And like I said, with consistency up on the porch, that 1 or 2 times that they were allowed to break would feed their lack of ability to do it consistently. And that's not their 1 or 2 times making mistakes. That's the lack of feedback from those mistakes. Sorry.
Or even if your spouse lets them go off the porch all the time.
Yeah.
That's really hindering your training, and it's ensuring that they're not going to listen to your spouse.
Yeah. And it's frustrating for the dog. That's the thing. When we have families that are not on the same page and the often it's, the young people in the family that are trying to live their own life with this dog, which I can understand on so many levels. I can understand them wanting to have a special relationship with the dog, etc. But if you're giving the dog conflicting information, like you're letting the dog out of the crate when the dog is whining, and everyone else in the family is working really hard to deal with the whining in different ways, that is horrendously frustrating for the dog, because on one level, this tactic of whining works.
Right.
Hey, sometimes it works when I whine. So they're going to lean into that tactic harder and harder and harder, to the point where they get to the anxiety state when it's no longer working as they would expect it to. So sometimes this works, so I'm going to try it really, really, really hard. But I don't understand why it doesn't always work. That really, there's no kindness in that for the dog. So everybody being on the same page is such an important thing. It's so very crucial for the dog's well-being that they don't have to learn in a state where the learning changes every time, right? Consistent information is so important. Addressing things as they come up is so important. So management is huge, because we're tired. We're not always ready, you know? If we always have to be on to deal with what the dog's doing, we're going to let things slip.
Yes. Like the other day, Honda had to go out to the bathroom. I could tell. And I was watching the World Series, and it was, the bases were loaded. So you're hoping for a grand slam. And I'm like, oh, I want to watch this next batter, but Honda needs to go out. Well, I had to put my life on hold, and I had to take Honda out. So, but a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, I'll take him out later. I'll take him out later. And then the dog pees on the floor, or the dog goes in the kitchen and chews on the baseboard. So,
or he's jumping up on grade A and I'll deal with it later. He's just a puppy right now. And there's lots of time to learn the obedience skills. That's confusing.
So our dog is learning at that moment that, it's not always consistent. And we're not being kind to the dog. We're not being effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about it yourself as a learner. If you went into work one day and someone said, do it this way, and then you went into the work the next day and someone said, you don't have to do it that way. Don't worry. That person doesn't know what they're talking about. Then you came in the third day and someone else was telling you something different. How frustrating would that be?
Yes.
It's the same for our dogs. Consistent information is really a blessing, especially since they don't even know they're supposed to be learning. They're not like looking at us and going, okay, teach me how to do a sit stay today. We have to give them that information, and we have to give them that information consistently so that they can now understand how to do a sit stay, and skills really are such an important thing. Management, if you are in any way, shape, or form getting a dog or getting a young dog or a puppy, management is going to be part of your life. So that means making sure that the dog is in a safe space when you can't watch them, when you don't feel like training, when you don't feel like backing up your voice, when you don't feel like making sure that the dog gets consistent information. You need to remove them from those situations where they have the option to offer other behaviors. So, for example, if I don't want to deal with my dog chewing on the couch leg because I'm busy watching the World Series and waiting for the Grand Slam, well, my dog's going to be pleasantly crated with a chew toy so that I don't have to be interrupted in that moment where I'm going, please, come on, let's win.
Right. Yeah. And in hindsight, I should have taken Honda out to the bathroom before the game or during a commercial break.
One day you'll learn.
Yeah. But of course I didn't, because I'm too busy chit-chatting and having fun and all that. And now it's like a crucial moment in the game. And it's like, the dog needs to go out. Like
that's your comeuppance.
Right. Yeah.
But he was stubborn. Honda was waiting for that moment.
He was. He's like, I need to pee really bad.
I want to ruin Swanee's baseball experience.
Well, it got ruined anyways. I'm a Yankees fan, so
yeah. Well, I think we've covered a lot of really great things
yes.
today. So hopefully everybody understands completely that the magic is in the work.
Right. Yep. You need to roll up your sleeves and train your dog, but keep your goals are achievable.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to ask for help as well.
Absolutely. And luckily with today's training, there's so many fun ways of doing all the things that you need to do that it really, once you get started and you get into it and you start seeing the light bulb come on with the dog, it's so rewarding for us that it becomes addictive and hopefully only as addictive as you want it to be. But on that note, I'm Instructor Shannon.
Instructor Swanee.
Happy training.
The McCann Dogs Podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!